All right, so today we ended up doing a mentor text. Looks like this. So you'll need to get this when you get back to school. And we'll take some annotations on it. I will get this into Schoology in the mentor text section in a little bit. So anyways, this is from the Declaration of Independence, and we're going to kind of annotate it a little bit because it's a little difficult to understand. So I'm going to go ahead and read this once, and then we'll kind of walk through it. All right, so we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Okay, so there's a lot of words there, a lot of things that we don't quite understand. Just a lot. So something to kind of keep in mind, though, is that the Declaration of Independence, it was written in 1776. So knowing that and just keeping that in our head is a good thing. If you do not have this piece of paper, you can just write the annotations on a piece of paper for now. And then when you get back to school, you can kind of just put that on with this in your sandbox. Okay. So 1776 is when the Declaration of Independence was written. So here we go. So we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So I'm going to box this in. All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So these men are all created equal because they have rights. And some of those rights are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And so we think of life, obviously, to live. Liberty is freedom. Okay? And the pursuit of happiness is to be happy. Like they have the right to be happy, to try to be happy. Okay? That to secure these rights or keep safe these rights, governments are instituted among men. Okay, so the governments are instituted among men. So basically what that's saying is that the government is made up by the people. So government made up by people, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So consent is like approval, and the governed would be like the people or us. Okay? That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, so destructive, like doesn't work anymore, it is the right of the people to alter, which is to change, or abolish or destroy it, and to institute new government. Okay, so something new. So if something's not quite working with what's happening in the government, then they can change it or they can get rid of it and they can create something new. Okay, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So the reason why things are changing is because they want to keep them safe and happy. Okay, so with this Declaration of Independence, kind of going and kind of getting a summary of this, it's basically saying that our government is made up of our people, how do I say that? Government made up of our people, and can change things in order to keep our people safe and happy. Okay, so that's essentially what that's saying. All those words, essentially this is what it's saying. Okay, so government made up of our people and can change things in order to keep our people safe and happy. So we have these rights. Those people are there to do all those things for us. Okay? All right, so the next thing you're going to do, because this is going to go along with Mrs. Othout's as well. So if you did with Mrs. Othout's first, great, that's fine. You're going to do the same thing with hers, just with a different mentor text. But for both of us, on the other side in your sandbox, I know I have mine on the back, but yours will be in your sandbox if you have it. If not, just put it on a separate sheet of paper. But you're going to divide this into 4 boxes. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're going to answer number 3 and 4 with Mrs. Othout's video. So if you already have your 3 and 4 done, that means you have 1 and 2 ready for me. If not, you'll have number 3 and 4 ready for Mrs. Othout's video. All right, so this first one, I want to go back to one of the statements that was written in this thing. It says, all men are created equal. Okay, so what I'm going to have you do is up top, you're going to write that. All men are created equal. And basically what I want you to do is I want you to write down your thoughts on that. So you're basically annotating those 5 words. So maybe you're going to make some annotations on it, like underlining, circling, that kind of thing. Or maybe you're just going to write your thought to it. Okay, in other classes that we ended up doing this with, a lot of people wanted to make sure that we remember that this was in 1776 is when that was written, because that kind of allows that date to, has a significance with that. Some other people, they wanted to circle this word of men, and they wanted to know who this is, because it's not really defined on who those men are. Some people in other classes said, what about women? There's all sorts of things that you could do here. Like if you have another thought, I want you to put your thought down. Because maybe you're like, well, I don't, or maybe you agree with it, maybe you don't agree with it. You can write those things down. Just your thoughts on this particular phrase. All men are created equal. Okay? So again, you can write down what I did. That's fine, but I want you to kind of write down your own thoughts. Maybe there's something else that sticks out to you. All right. So the next question is, or the next thing you're going to write to, is going to be about civil liberties of today. So we're going to write civil liberties today. And I'm going to go to this really quickly. So civil liberties are individual rights that are protected by the law. So civil liberties are individual rights protected by the law. And so what we're going to do on this particular one is we're going to think about today. And if we have seen or experienced a time, like if you've experienced something, or if someone you know has experienced something, or a group of people that you've seen, like maybe on TV, if they've been treated differently based on civil liberties, which is like their human rights. Okay, so if you want to put this underneath human rights. So essentially we're going here and seeing, hey, has there been a time that I have seen that someone or a group of people have been treated differently based on human rights or based on civil liberties? Okay, so you're going to think, has there been a time that you have seen, maybe it's happened to you, maybe it's happened to someone in your family, maybe it's been something you've seen on TV, or just out in public, but civil liberties today. Okay, have you seen or experienced a time when you or someone you know or someone or group you have seen on TV being treated differently based on civil liberties or human rights? Okay, So I need to think on that one. This is kind of tough for a few of my classes today. But if we think about human rights and how they may be treated differently in the sense that they still have those human rights, even though they're treated differently for it. A lot of my students today came up with something about with like being handicapped or having a like wheelchair access. I had another student kind of talk about how sometimes there are parking spots for women who are pregnant, so it's closer to the entrance. Age limitations on things, service animals, that kind of thing. So they still have the human rights. They're still able to do those things, but maybe they're treated a little bit differently because of a certain situation that they have going on. So just a couple examples to kind of get you started. We can talk about handicap. We can talk about, and this goes along with that, but wheelchair access. Someone else said service animals. There's lots of little different things here and there, but I want you to think, because I want you to kind of think through on some certain things that you have seen. Let's kind of think through, is there something that you have been exposed to or seen with a group of people or a person treated differently based on their human rights, based on civil liberties? And I want you to add to that. Okay? Once you get done with this, make sure you do also Mrs. Othout's, unless you have Mrs. Othout tomorrow, if you are not going to be at school, then you'll want to do the whole thing. But you'll want to have this with you, and you'll eventually have 2 separate ones. You'll have mine and Mrs. Othout's on here, and then you'll answer all 4 different questions. We only did 2 of them today, but then the 3rd and 4th question will be done with Mrs. Othout in her video. All right, so you're going to go ahead and think through that. And then when you get done doing that, what you're going to do is you're going to go into Schoology. So I'm going to show you this really quickly because we are going to be doing a project over civil liberties. It's going to be a combined one with Mrs. Othout and myself. And so basically we want to get you introduced to some civil liberty things that have happened within the United States. And so looking at this, you'll go into Reading Writing course. You'll go into the Civil Liberties folder, which is the blue one, and you'll click on the link and it will take you to this. And what we want you to do is we want you just to explore these different topics that we have here for you. So there's a lot of different topics you'll see over here on this column. There's topics, then we have videos, we have websites, we have other things. So what you're going to do is you're going to spend some time. You're just going to kind of look through. You will eventually need to have a topic in mind that you will do your project on. So you can kind of go through. If you start with slavery and you're like, I don't really want to do that one, you can move on. Maybe you like child workers. Maybe you want to do that one. Women's rights movement, Great Depression, Japanese American internment camps in the U.S., Civil rights movement, which is broken up into multiple sections. You can try to look at that. Native Americans, Americans with disabilities. So there's a lot that you can actually look at in here. And what we want you to do is we want you to kind of explore. We want you to see which one you like the best, because that's something that you're going to be doing your project on when we eventually get to explaining what that project looks like, which will be later on this week. Okay? All right, so that's what you're doing. Give yourself some time to kind of look at that, and then make sure what all the things that we did on the piece of paper, that you take a picture of it and send it to me so that way I know that you did it. And then when you get back to school, we'll make sure you have all those things, and we'll put it in your Sandbox notebook. All right? Okay, that's all I got.